Welcome to your assisted stretch with Proverb LIFEFUELLED Skincare. I'm Kirsty.
And I'm Luke, and we are the co-founders of Proverb. Hope you're having the most wonderful World Wellness Weekend.
Just before we start, let's do some logistics, a quick run through to make sure you've got what you need, because if you haven't, you could go off and get it while we're doing this intro part. So make sure you've got a mat or a towel. You need a friend of any shape or size. and also some kind of stretchy, comfy clothes. So if you haven't got those, head off and get them. And if you are prepared, thank you. But what you could do, just while we talk quickly through the benefits and things that maybe you can't stretch and what we need to avoid, I would love it if you just started to do a little bit of a warm up, like literally walk on the spot, jog on the spot, so that you just start to get the blood flowing before we start our stretching session.
Okay, so Proverb is created for people who are passionate about their health, performance and the environment. And we have that integrated between those people that are managing to do that at home for themselves, or with our amazing gym and spa partners who use our products and do our assisted stretch, which is what we're here to demonstrate and enjoy today.
And we are so excited to have some of our spa and gym partners with us. We know in the UK we've got Chelsea Harbour Club, the Art Hotel, Breedon Priory, and then a little bit further from us we've got some amazing properties in the UAE. So we know we've got Four Seasons involved, Atlantis, Raya Wellbeings at Fairmont, and Raya Wellness at the Palm. So if you're watching from there, whether you are a client, a guest, or a team member, thank you so much for being part of it with us. We are very, very grateful and excited to have you here.
So today we're talking about assisted stretch, and the reason that's so important is something that I learned back when I was a professional rugby player, and that is all the benefits you can get to help with your performance. So you're talking about improving not just your flexibility, but that will improve your mobility, that can help with your balance, which over the long term is a great thing for health. There's also some stress release in there. We all never feel better when we can get those stresses and strains out of our body. And while you're doing it, you're bound to take some deep breaths, which is going to get some oxygen around into the places that need it and improve your recovery.
And for 11 years, I watched Luke train. There was so much yoga and so much stretch. These kind of huge boys doing all of this yoga and stretch. And so when we created Proverb, I wanted to take that stretch into the treatments. And so when you visit one of our spas or gyms that offer our assisted stretch, they'll either be doing it in a gym space like we will be today when you are clothed, or they'll be taking you to the treatment room and doing facials and body massages where they're doing assisted stretch, but they're also combining in the massage. And what we are going to do, us and you today, is more of the gym-based version, so without the massage, just in case you are not all massage therapists. So while Luke's gone off to do his warm-up, I want to go through the list of things that would mean you can't do this. That is always crucial. What contraindicates a stretch? And so I'm very interested in joints. So any shoulder injuries, hips, knees. Please do not do this session if you have any dislocated or frequent dislocating joints. We wouldn't want to stretch those. If you've got any sort of muscle tears or problems or any acute injury at the moment, anything that is recent that is causing you problems, then please don't do this stretch. Please use your best selfish judgment, because we do not want you to cause yourself any harm or injury. And as we go through and start doing the stretching, I will be giving you the crucial key rules to make sure that we are stretching safely. Okay, let's start this assisted stretch. So decide which one of you is going first and lie them down. And then the other one, you're with me. We're going to learn this the first time round. Now, just like when I'm teaching gym PTs or spa therapists, the first time we do this, it will always take a bit longer because we have to explain it. But when we switch round, the person that's lying down, make sure you've kept your ears open so that you're listening as well and learning as we go. Now, I've just put a little rolled up towel under Luke's neck. That's always good, just for a little bit of support. Make sure you tell them if you are not comfortable. And when we deliver this as proper paid for treatments, we have a nice opening, which I kind of can't not do. It's inherently built in me. Now, obviously you may not have the bottles. It's easier for me because I've got all the bottles here. But Proverb has a beautiful skin and gym sanitizer that we always mist around just to begin. And then we get our guest, our client, your friend, to take some nice deep breaths. So if you get them to close their eyes, and we're just gonna deep breathe in and breathe out. And we're gonna do 4 deep breaths in and out. And what I want them to practice is just trying to make the exhale a little bit longer than the inhale. So that's number 2. And in and out. And if you want to embrace your inner spa therapist, you could put your hands on their shoulders as well. And then we are going to check a range of movement on their hamstring. So with our Proverb treatments, we always open with checking a range of a very specific muscle. Today I've chosen the hamstring. The reason we're going to do this is you're going to spend your time today with me, and I want to show you by the end what has happened. Likewise, if you were coming for a treatment, I want to be able to prove to you at the end what has happened. So we're going to check the range of his hamstring, and at the very end of the session, we're going to check that range again. So simply all we're going to go and do is lift his leg up into a hamstring stretch. So if you take one of his legs and just lift up. So you're going to support at the ankle. And at this stage, I don't want you to press too hard. We are just doing a gentle range to check where it is before it starts to feel like it's shaking. Could that go any further, Luke?
Yeah.
But don't go too hard at this point. We haven't done other stretches. And what we're looking for is how close to 90 degrees this leg is. So if you imagine this would be 90, give your friend their kind of score of how well they've come around that protractor towards 90. So I'd say we're about 75 on that one.
Yeah.
So remember which leg is got which measurement, and then you can do the same on the other one. What you'll find is that often there is a difference. So that's gone up a little bit more easily into that, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Still about 75. And we're going to see at the end if we can get to 90. So, within this session, we are going to start at the toes and we're going to work our way up to the neck. And we are going to make sure that we have done a stretch on all of our major muscle groups, working up through the toolboxes of the body. So we're going to start at their toes, feet. They can keep their trainers on, or if they are dirty and you don't want that, you can take them off, but make sure they've got their socks on. We are going to do a foot flex to begin with. So you are going to put your hands on the balls of their feet and push towards them. Then come on the top and pull those toes downwards. And then we'll repeat that. Now you need them, crucially, to give you feedback. So, Luke, could that be further?
No.
No, we're good. And people that are lying down, there is no awards for bravery here. You need to be in charge of your own health. So you have to feed back and tell them whether they need to be lighter or softer. It's also quite nice just to roll that foot in and roll that foot in. Okay. Try and just work on that ankle flexibility. Now the calf is going to come later. We can get it in a better position than now. So I'm not purposely missing that out. That is going to come later. What I then want you to do is to bend their leg up, and we are going to just oscillate. So support on the base of their foot, support that knee, and we're going to do a circle, starting to open up that hip a little bit.
And the key to this one is the person on the floor, let your leg go limp and relaxed. Don't try and predict where they're going to go. You don't want any resistance, then you get more range of movement.
Take their foot, pop it on your hip. I find it easier to maybe bend this leg up, because what I want to do, if you just bring your hands down by the side, is lunge forward. Now, if you get this one wrong, it would be because the knee is in line with the ribs. You need to just bring this out to the side slightly so that it can avoid the rib cage.
And the person on the floor can try and consciously keep their other hip flat. You don't want to roll over and tilt like that.
So if you are trying to cheat and roll yourself out of it, if you notice, you could use your other hand to hold them down. And where can you feel this stretch?
Bottom of my glute and my hamstring.
Yeah. This is a glute, and you'll start to feel it in the hamstring as well. From here, put their foot to the side of their knee and let the other knee fall out to the side. They look like you've drawn a number 4, like a figure of 4. And what we're looking for next is the adductor, which is the groin, ultimately, so the inside of the leg. And to do this, you're going to put one of your hands on their hip and the other hand just above the knee. But this is super, super important that you do not press very hard. It is very common that this adductor is tight, and very stereotypically, you will find it's more tight on a male as a general rule in the groin. So we want to go gradually. And you'll see I look at him because I want to read and get some impression. Could it go further, or is that enough?
No, I can go a bit further.
Watch this resting hand, because sometimes if you're on the hip bone, that can be painful. So it might be worth trying a different position here. But always, as the stretch therapist, which is what you and I are right now, we are kind of working one hand against the other to get that assisted stretch.
A bit further.
A bit further. One thing you should never do is really push down on any of these stretches. So we don't want any jolts, and we don't want any forced bouncing. So you shouldn't ever be forcing this stretch. Assisted stretch is all about gradual stretch, because, and we'll explain later when we turn around about what we've really got to get those muscle fibers to do and how we're going to get them to elongate themselves. From here, swap that foot onto the other side. You've got one hand on their knee, one hand on their shoulder. Get them to turn their neck. And this is going to start to really get a beautiful twist on their lower lumbar, coming up a little bit into the thoracic on their back. If they want this stretch to increase, they can bring their arms up and out to the side on the opposite side to where their leg is. He declared it enough. And so the question really is always, what's enough? I once met an amazing Pilates teacher, and I think her explanation was always my favourite for stretch. And it's something that's really easy to understand. When you put someone into assisted stretch, if you can feel a whisper of that stretch, then it is not enough. If you can feel the stretch talking to you, going, okay, Luke, I continually feel that, ow, 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 it's definitely there. Talking is good. If it is screaming at you, if your muscle and your nerve endings are screaming, then you are going to be pushing them too hard. Bring this back, keep this knee bent up and bend the other one up. And then the leg we were working on, I want you to bring that over the top of the other one like this. And we're going for our pretzel. You will have done this to yourself, probably in a gym before, but as always, anytime you assist a stretch, it is so much better. So I'm just placing his foot onto my hip, and I am going to bring it back and lean my weight towards him, because again, he should be getting a very good glute stretch at this point.
And again, try and keep your lower back on the floor if you can. If they're forcing that up, then let them know so that you're keeping the stretch on the glute and not too much on the lower back. That's good.
In terms of how long you should hold each one of these, minimum, ideally 30 seconds. I've known stretch experts say of up to 2 minutes, but I would say for us starting, minimum 30 seconds. And then sticking with the leg we are working on, we are going to do our hamstring stretch. Now the first time we did this, we were just putting it up to look at the range of motion. Now I do want to assist this stretch. So I'm using my bicep strength here to move his toe towards his head. And I've got to watch this leg, this lower leg, that he doesn't start to roll over to try and get out of the stretch. So I'm going to support the quads with my other hand. Okay, take some nice deep breaths. Any further?
Yeah, a bit more.
A bit more.
When we talked about some of the benefits of stretch, you'll find individually which ones are a bit more taxing, and that's when you try to find yourself breathing. So if you breathe into the stretch, it'll help get oxygen to the muscles and hopefully it won't hurt so much.
Now this one definitely needs a deep breath. So when I'm doing this on clients, I'll always say take a deep breath, because we're going to bring this stretch through the calf. And the simple way to do that is to bring the toes downwards. So if you take a nice deep breath for me, and then I'm going to bring those toes down, and it completely changes so that you should be able to feel it in the calf muscle, not so much the hamstring anymore. And I can feel it shaking. Good work. Anytime you know that you've worked that area quite hard, this little oscillation is really nice. So you can always oscillate, which is going in a circle, and then you could go back. But it's just a nice way to kind of say, yeah, well done. Okay.
I always think stretches work best when there's a nice flow to it, so it doesn't need to be any fast or quick movements.
How does this leg feel compared to this leg?
Longer.
Much longer. So you will know that you have achieved some gains because this leg feels genuinely longer than the other one.
And is desperate for it to be stretched.
And then we need to do all the same on the other leg. Off for the second leg. What you'll find is obviously I'm kneeling on the mat. If at any point the person who is the stretch therapist, if you find it uncomfortable, you can always put a towel under your knees as well. So we're going to change sides. We've already done the toe flexes on both toes, so we don't need to do that again. So we can come straight up. He's relaxing his leg, and I'm supporting and guiding this circling of the hip. And you can go in either direction. It's quite nice to go in both. Now, depending on the partner you have, assisted stretch can be very easy or very difficult. I have quite a difficult partner, because he is a 6'4", very long-legged
That reason.
giraffe. Pick a friend who's small, is my advice. Okay, so this one is where we've put their foot onto the hip. We've brought this knee slightly out to avoid the rib cage, and I am leaning my body weight forward for him to be feeling a glute stretch. Could that go any further?
No, spot on.
Keep talking to each other, don't force it, make it gradual, encourage them to breathe. And then I'm going to take this down into our figure of 4. So putting his foot near his other knee, and he makes this figure of 4 shape to do the adductor stretch. So I am not on the knee joint, I'm above the knee, and then I'm with the hip. Talk to me, tell me.
Yeah, a bit further.
So this is the one that we said go really light and gradual to begin with, because this adductor muscle that's in the groin can be quite tight.
Especially if you do a lot of sitting, which most of us do.
And what you will also find, depending on your sport or lifestyle choices, different muscles will more commonly cause you an issue. So the adductors, for instance, we will find when we're treating clients is common issue for footballers. Anything that involves kicking and anything that also involves lateral sidestepping. So things like tennis, where you have to be explosive to the side. Bend this knee up, swap the foot over to the other side of the knee. We are going to get them to look the opposite way to the way their knee's going, and we're working on this lower thoracic and lumbar twist. You're going to use your hand to pin their shoulders down and guide this leg over. Again, if you sit a lot, which unfortunately for Luke and I, we do now, this you can feel more, can't you?
Yeah, that's good there.
So this is a very good one if we talk about assisted stretch being a great antidote for a 40-hour plus work at week sitting at a desk. And when you come and have this treatment in one of our spas, the therapist will then do some beautiful massage into this ITV here as well. Adding massage into stretch is amazing because the fascia is tight, so we can get really good depth and work on the muscle very successfully. Okay, we're off to do our pretzel next. So you keep this one bent, you bend up the other one because that's going to be the stand for this one to go on, and then we lift this. Do not let your back come curling off the floor.
That's good.
Stop.
Yeah. And as the person being stretched, it's worth taking note of if you do find one side easier than the other, because we all have an imbalance somewhere and that can lead to injury further down the line. So assess yourself as you're doing this, and then you can go away and maybe work a little bit more on the side that's stiff so you can balance them both out.
And so would that, Luke, be a mixture for you of doing more stretching on that side to make sure you've got flexibility, but actually also doing more weights on that side to make sure that you've got the strength?
Yeah, sometimes it's because the muscle on that side isn't as strong, and so it wants to stay tight to protect itself. Won't get too in depth into it, but when you're working muscles, you should work them over the full range of motion. Less beach weights, more pull-ups would be an example of that.
And then last one for this one, we're going into our hamstring. So I've got this hand pushing back on the quad. I've got a good grip underneath the ankle. You you've definitely got more range on this one. Take some nice deep breaths for me. And out. Okay, and then you take a super deep breath as we're going to bring this through the calf. I'm going to pull these. And I can instantly start to feel him shake a little. But he wants it to go further still. No. And then hopefully when we put this down, he should feel just as long as the other one. We're going to bend these up. Bend up both of them. And because we've now done both legs, we're just going to do our finishing set, another little bit of adductor work. I call this the butterfly, where you let these two knees drop out, the feet are together and parallel. Do not push down hard. Be very, very light and gradual and get them to feed back to you.
Yeah, that's good.
Now to get them up, we are going to use this butterfly position to get them up. So the therapist, stretch therapist, you stand. I'm going to cross their feet and put my knees just in between their ankles, hold below their knee and lean forward. And this feels really lovely on the lower back. It feels like your lower back and your spine is eventually being flattened to the ground. Is that how it feels? Feels like someone could just stay there all day.
Yeah.
Be aware of this movement if you have had knee injuries. So if you've had ligament injuries, ligaments removed, your knee might not like being in this shape so much, so maybe this is one you can't do. And then I'm going to take their hands, I'm going to hold their wrists, and we're going to get them up, but to do it, we're going to pull one shoulder off the ground, then the other, then the other, then the other, because this is also part of our thoracic stretching and movement we want. Starting to rotate that back.
For those of you that don't know the spine as well as Kirsty, the thoracic is the middle.
Sorry, middle back. And starts to get a little stretch on the shoulders. And then we can bring them up. And that is your lower leg body section done. And this is where you can have a lie down and they can do some work. Okay, so if you swap over partners, and we're going to do that again. We can talk less this time because you've already heard it going through once. And what I will positively demonstrate for you is what goes wrong when you don't stretch enough. It is quite interesting to understand why we're doing this. Like Proverb as a brand is always based in marginal gains, and what we desperately try and ask people to do is daily to be doing this assisted stretch. And you're about to see what happens when you don't.
Okay, relax, lie down. Take 4 deep breaths. Okay, so like Kirsty did on me, we're going to come up this end and we're going to start by demonstrating that range of movement. She's giving you a clue as to how well it might go. We'll just lift this leg up. Nothing too taxing at the moment, but just let me know how you feel there. A bit further?
No thanks.
No thanks. Okay, so off that vertical we talked about earlier, probably say nearer 60 degrees. Not too bad.
No, what is really interesting, so I haven't been very well for the last 6 months and haven't been able to do any exercise and should have been stretching, but hadn't.
She might have hustled us here.
And it's fascinating to see how quickly you lose your flex as well.
But the good thing is you can get it back just as quickly. So that's actually more like 75, nearly 80 on that arm. So we're going to come down here and we're going to start with the foot flexors. like Kay said, there won't be so much need to talk so much through this, just to get the feedback from the person being stretched. Good?
All good. What I've learned over the years of doing this stretch with therapists is you actually need to press much harder than you think. So, person on the ground, if you can't feel any stretching, tell them. That's good. And so we're just rolling that ankle in now.
I'll pick the leg up. I'm going to relax. Kirsty knows the motion so well that she finds it hard not to predict. And keeping the knee outside the body. And the hip down. How's that?
Good. A bit less.
Bit less?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier about knee injuries. The person doing the stretch as well, just watch where you put your weight. If someone has had problems with the knees, sometimes what this hand can do is actually go underneath as well, as opposed to putting any weight down onto there. Or if your knee can't get into that position, you just don't do this stretch. It's good.
Knee down, make our figure of 4. I know from experience Kirsty's hip is quite sensitive, so.
So yeah, his alternative hand has just gone down a bit because I find it really painful having a hand on my hip. That's just very specific to me.
Bit more.
No, that's fine. And the person lying on the floor when you're having assisted stretch, we talk often about stretch and alignment. What you've got to be really aware of is ideally everything should be straight and aligned to the floor. So if you can feel yourself twisting the opposite bit of your body off, you're compensating and trying to get out of that stretch. So you've got to tell the person to maybe ease off that stretch so you're not doing that.
Put your arms out and cross. There we go. Look towards that shoulder. Roll that over there.
Stop. It's probably my favourite stretch, this one.
Take a few deep breaths.
Even though I'm so bad at it right now.
And you can feel as they breathe, they start to relax and it will naturally just go further.
Oxygen is your friend in stretching, but also so is carbon dioxide. There's a huge underestimation on carbon dioxide. Like you're always told to breathe in deeply because oxygen's the key, but carbon dioxide is needed in your blood to be the catalyst to actually get the oxygen into the blood cells into all of your cells as it travels around. So you want to really concentrate on your exhaling as well and keep that exhale nice and slow.
And talk less when you're meant to be being stretched.
I teach for a living, I can't talk less.
Okay, keep your back flat.
Probably not as flat as it should be. I'll ease off a little bit and then it will go flatter. Okay. Yeah, there. A little bit more. That's good.
Bring the legs flat. In that shape. Come into there.
So this was the 60% leg, remember?
for Kirsty to use her arm and her bicep. That means this way I can.
So you do have to work with the height differences between you.
Okay.
If you can put it on your shoulder, it is less impactful on your body as the person doing the stretching.
Just bring the toe down.
Is it talking or is it screaming? That is the question.
You tell me.
Talking. We don't go any further. I know from doing this on so many people, this is the one where people definitely feel it, so you need them to be breathing. Super long leg.
I remember already done the feet.
And so you'll probably be used to people saying you should stretch every day. But the question really is why? So if you don't exercise and don't stretch, then what happens to your muscles is that they get tight and they get shorter. So when you look at a diagram of a muscle, it's lots, I won't be able to talk if I'm screaming, it's lots and lots of fibres, all kind of long layers of fibres. And as you don't use that muscle, they tighten and they contract and they shorten. And then what happens if you do physical activity with them like that, you suddenly want to use them, but they're not at their full range. They're not fully extended because you haven't kept them stretched and flexible, and the collagen and muscle fibers just can't do that instantly. So what you really risk is you risk joint pain, you risk tearing muscles, a little bit less on that one. You risk injuring yourself. So that is why ideally you would be very frequently stretching to try and keep those muscle fibers elongated, good blood flow to them.
Legs on the crossbody.
Stop. If you want the stretch to go further, I don't, but this arm can move. If it moves higher and higher in that direction towards your head, it will increase that stretch from your arm coming through that mid and lower spine.
Deep breath.
We call this the trunk twist. And so in your pretzel, ideally you want to be feeling it around in this glute area. So your arms either there or there. What you don't want is them all higgledy-piggledy.
Want them aligned. Is that
I can feel it.
a bit more?
No thanks. And so with this assisted stretch, this type of stretch is what's called, most of this is static stretching, which means you can static stretching is a stretch to really kind of try and increase flexibility, because you can concentrate and isolate specific muscles. So you have specifically isolated these hamstrings right now, and now he's about to come down into my calf.
And the other
Feel the wobble.
The other benefit is that, like any training, if you have a partner, it's more likely that they'll push you just that little bit further.
And so you'll have recognised shapes and stretches that you can do yourself on your own in the gym. And if you are on your own in the gym or at home, then definitely do them. But what hopefully you'll see today is with someone else assisting it, even if it meant that you get a centimetre further, it makes such a difference and it just feels better. And my head deadlifts are very tight, they're not normally that tight. While I haven't been able to exercise, what I have been able to do is sit at a desk and go to work. So this is our butterfly.
Any more?
No. Definitely not.
Nearly screaming.
On the way. And this is a little bit harder for Luke because he's much taller than me. However, my spine and lower back thanks you.
One last deep breath. In the arms.
And she's up. Okay, so both of you are at this stage, and if you swap back round and put the first person back to this seated position, so they're going to sit in the middle of their mat and put their legs out straight. In this seated position then, we are going to get our client, he's not a client, my friend, get my friend, he's not paying, to touch his toes. So again, a stretch you can do on your own, which you will find should be stretching the back of the hamstring. What we are going to do is put our hands on the middle of his back and just gradually push for him and start asking, okay, Luke, any further?
That's good.
And just keep that same pressure in for that stretch. It doesn't look like I've barely done anything, but does it feel different?
Yes.
He's not allowed to say no. You could slightly move your hands a little, but they are definitely best in that mid-range. So don't be pressing too much at the bottom or at the top. We want the middle. And then we're going to get him to bend his right knee up. And he is going to twist round. So he's going to use his arm to hook onto that knee. His other arm as straight as he can behind him. And he's going to twist to the side. So he can do that himself, but I'm going to help assist that stretch. So again, like I talked about, often as the stretch therapist, we are pushing and pulling. So I'm going to go a hand on a pec here, and this is going to pull back towards me while I gently work on the other shoulder and push that forward. So my right arm is pulling, my left arm is pushing. This hand position here, if you're working on a female model, will have to be slightly adapted, because obviously you'll have breast tissue here, so you may have to come a little bit higher. and then get them to swap and do the other side. Ooh, I don't know if you got that on the audio, but it was a lovely click. Okay, so that is our seated twist. Sitting down, and I would maybe suggest that they cross their legs. We are going to do some stretches to utilise the upper back, the scapula, which is the shoulder blade, and coming into this shoulder capsule area as well. So just reminder, we said at the beginning, if your shoulders dislocate, then do not be doing these. If you've had recurring dislocations, one of the challenges is that you cannot sometimes feel being overstretched. So without a physiotherapist, I wouldn't be doing this. And if they can't sit cross-legged and keep their back aligned, then it might be time to get a chair or a bench. So you could go to a chair or a bench, because what you don't want is to be trying to stretch their arms, but if you just bend your back in the wrong, they've got this whole curvature on their spine, so that needs to stay straight. Arms out to the side like a tree. I'm going to go for the biceps, and I'm going to pull those backwards, with my aim being to bring his two shoulder blades towards each other. So talk to them. Do you want that to carry on going back? A little bit further?
Thanks.
And then stay there for your 30 seconds. So this is, we're retracting the shoulder blades. You'll start to feel a stretch through the pec muscles at the front. They are also troubled by sitting at desks. If you pretend you're at your desk, Luke, typing on your computer, you've got this anterior tilt, and these will become shortened as well. Put their hands into a position like they're going to be arrested. Again with the biceps, and again bringing those two shoulder blades back.
And more on the left.
And then we're going to put their hands onto their head. We're going to cup their elbows. Go gradual on this one because it tends to be more intense, and we're bringing those elbows backwards again towards, like you're closing those shoulder blades. Any further with that?
No, that's great.
And you can see that whole kind of armpit area opening up. And we're going to take that to a tricep stretch. So, similar to how you may do on your own, they're going to put their hand onto their back, but we're going to assist by one of our hands being on their scapula, their shoulder blade. The other hand is going to take the tip of the elbow. The most strength is required in your shoulder blade hand, not this. You should be pushing forward into this shoulder blade much more than you are pulling back with the elbow. Because my hand on his back is stabilising that shoulder joint.
I don't think so much back is over. You're lifting up and over.
How's that?
Amazing.
And then the other one. Shoulders are amazing things because obviously they are your joint that has 360-degree movement, but that means they can be unstable, so you really do need to be careful with them. And if you have any worries at all, do not work on them. That is why you might be heading to one of our gyms and spas to find the pros or a physio. And then from this seated position, he's going to go into all fours for a child's pose like we may do in yoga. So he's going to bring his bottom back to his heels and put his arms out in front of him. And depending on your personal feeling, you can open those legs as much or as little as you need. That is a lovely stretch in itself. Brilliant, this position for the parasympathetic nervous system. Really good place to take some deep breaths. So if you take some nice breaths with long exhales. And what we are going to do is take this area around the coccyx sacrum and we are going to push downwards. So imagine you're trying to lengthen and bring their spine downwards. So we're not pushing forward, we're trying to come this way. How does that feel? I think that was good. You can lift off and take that pressure down again. So look, if you bring yourself up onto all fours and stay on your knees, but just slowly bring yourself upwards. One of the toolbox groups that we need still to deal with is a hip flexor. Notoriously difficult to find stretches for. We do have some in our treatments, but they do need the PTs or the therapist to be doing them. So in our session, what we are going to do is this is the only one I'm not going to assist. So look, if you bring one leg up for me, and he is going to lean slightly forward to, if you show us your arm down there, so he's working on this side here. So there's one that I'm not assisting. As I said, there are, in our treatments, other ways of doing this, but it's crucial that we keep stability, and there isn't a good one for us to do it as beginners today. But we do not want to miss that out, particularly because many of us spend so much time sitting, and that hip flexor becomes much shorter and tight. And then after our hip flexors, we're going to return. He's going to put his head back at the end we started. Okay, so if you think about where we've dealt with the feet, ankles, with calves, we've had lots of hamstring and glutes, we've just done hip flexors, we've been working on that thoracic twist, and we've started on our shoulder area. I want to just have a look a little bit at the arms next. So get your friend lying flat, arms down by their side, and we're going to do what we call clocks. So it's envisaging a clock face with 12 o'clock over there, 6 o'clock there, 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And I'm going to support the shoulder with one hand. With my other hand, I'm going to hold the wrist and I'm going to push the shoulder down and pull with my other hand. So I'm stretching that arm out. I'm then going to just place it out to 3 o'clock. I don't need to pull here or stretch. The placement is quite a nice stretch. And then I'm going to lift it up to the sky. I'm going to just support underneath that shoulder, lift it up and lift the wrist to get a really nice stretch on your upper back. And then bring that across. Not going to push too much, just going to lift it across. How's that feel? Now remember I said at the beginning we weren't going to massage, which we're not. The only thing, let's have one little bit. See here, just above the elbow, just grab this brachialis radialis and give it a little wiggle. This is under so much tension when you are sitting at a computer or when you do repeated weights, when you're doing repeated arm weights specifically, or anyone that works a lot with their hands, so therapists, anyone that gardens a lot. Okay. We then need to clock on the other arm. Hop yourself over. Bring it out to the side. And then for my last section, I want to come to the head side. And I am going to remove these pillows. And I'm going to support their head. So my hand is in a V shape, cradling the head. Now what's crucial is I haven't got it bent up like this. I've got it completely parallel to the floor. And I'm just very, very simply going to help him guide and take his ear towards his shoulder, and the same on this side. So we are not pulling, we are not putting any force or pressure, it's just a gentle passive flex. Ear towards shoulder, ear towards shoulder. And then I'm going to leave it in that position to do a stretch on the trapezius, which is your big top of shoulder muscle, comes down your upper back as well. And you're going to hold their shoulder and we're going to depress this shoulder down as if we're trying to push it down towards the foot while we pull the head slightly, a very gentle assisted stretch sideways. And then the same on the other side. Get them to let you have their arms. Bring them both to 12 o'clock. So this would be 12 o'clock on my clocks. And firstly, just let them stay in that position because they're already providing themselves a stretch. And then holding their wrists, the last thing you're going to do is just try and stretch those wrists towards you. So I'm pulling towards this wall behind me. And you are done. However, what I want to check is I want to check if that range has improved at all in those hamstrings. So just before we leave, we're going to go and have a look at that range of motion before we change over and swap around. Okay, so we're going to have a look, see what we've done. So again, don't cheat, don't go kind of pushing this. You want to be like you were at the beginning. Still not 90, but it's definitely a bit more than 75.
Yeah, definitely go a bit further.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that feels comfortable. That's talking, it's not screaming at you.
Similar feeling to the first time.
Nearly 90 there. Easily 90 there. get a tick. We've done some. One thing I would say when you are doing a hamstring, don't get obsessed about the range enough that this leg starts to bend and this is not actually straight. I see lots of people cheating and this leg is straight. So, not straight, sorry. So you'll be better to have it fully straight with a little bit less range. Good work.
Oh, well done you.
Now, again, I've got my bottles, I've got my muscles. So what we would always be doing in the treatments is we would take some of that muscles and any of those muscles that we can get to that we've worked on, you can put it on. So if you're already at home with your Proverb muscles or you're in a gym where you've got it, I would grab some of it and you can pop some on to your legs or your shoulders or any bit that we've worked on that you have access to. And then we're going to do 4 nice breaths to finish. So if you breathe in for me, 1, 2, 3, 4, and out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And in again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. Holding that exhale for a little bit longer, and then go again. And we're going to repeat that breathing for 4 goes. And then if you've got your skin and gym mist to complete. And now the challenge is you've got to wake your partner up for them to do the same on you.
Alright, so it's Kirsty's turn now. We've got us seated in this position and we're going to see if our hamstring flexibility is as good as she thinks it is. So, is that you trying to touch your toes?
That's my attempt.
Alright, well I'm going to help now, so this is where the assisted bit comes in. A few deep breaths.
And what you've got to watch is for me to cheat. I could bend those up. Don't let them bend them up.
That's it. So we saw earlier that Kirsty's hamstring flexibility was actually quite good, so I think her problem is her back. I think her stiffness is coming from her back, and I can feel that when I'm pushing against it.
So can she.
A few more deep breaths. See if you can lift your toes up. See, Kirsty's pointing her toes to make it easier. That's okay, but that's just a demonstration. There we go. There we go. A few more seconds there. I think she wants to scream.
It's why we have me and you. It's good to have one that's super flexy and one that's not.
Okay, now if you'd like to bend up either knee, which one, everyone? Put that across there. And feed your arm through there. That's good. Actually pretty good at this. So again, I'm pulling with one hand and pushing gently with the other. How's that feel?
Feels lovely on your back.
A few deep breaths. And if the person on the floor tries to sit up tall, not slump down, that's great. Oh, there we go. Got to kick this way as well. And back into the middle. Nice hand at the back, that nice and tall. Deep breaths. Okay. Back into the middle. Looks more comfortable cross-legged. So I think you'll probably notice do you cross your legs the same way every time?
I think so.
Yeah, so it might be worth actually, it's a bit uncomfortable to start with, but actually practicing crossing your legs over the other way. So you get a little bit more alignment. Not always crossing in the same way. And we can do your arms. And one thing that can help this, we may have had, here's one we made earlier, if you put a little bolster, a rolled up towel, you can get a bit more range of movement. So we're doing the cross here, so go arms straight, and let me know how we get it.
Yeah, you can carry on.
See, I think you get a bit more flexibility there.
That towel bolster between us is also very good if the person doing the stretch is a female and you don't want to feel like your chest is pushing into their back, depending on how well you know your friend.
How's that going?
It feels lovely. Feels lovely on the pecs at the front.
All that sitting at a desk typing.
This is also good to do if you play racket sports. What you'll find is that the side that you're dominant with, that you swing your racket with, your front of your pec will be very, very open, but the opposite one tends to be very, very tight and contracted.
How's that going?
Beautiful. Yeah, don't no further, we're good.
Okay. Let's wait for this one because we're going to have to put some pressure on. So again, finding the shoulder blade here to support it. Lifting this up and over. How does that feel?
It's good.
A bit more?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Now you go into hold fours and get into child pose.
Those few movements are worth doing on your own, just when you sit off the side of your bed in the morning, just doing those as like a little quick wake up.
So it's worth pointing out as well, a lot of these stretches are maintenance, those marginal gains we talked about, something you can do every day, not necessarily what you'd use to warm up for dynamic exercise. You'd want to be a bit warmer and a bit more dynamic in your stretching, but certainly in recovery when your muscles are tight from training, or as we talked about, sitting still for long periods, it's definitely worth trying to find half an hour a day to keep that mobility up, so that when you come to do that dynamic stretching, you're already on a good basis of flexibility. How's that feeling?
Beautiful, yeah. Pull down a bit more, that's fair.
Okay, we come back up to all fours. Remember, hip flexor stretch. So with this one, we don't want to necessarily go too far over our knee, so you can bring that foot forward. Just go forward a bit. And it's really about the hip flexor on the other side, bringing and tensing your glute on this side. If I'm not assisting, then you can assist yourself by squeezing your glute. And then for an extra stretch, we've already warmed up your shoulder, so try not to lean over, just try and bring your arm up and over like we were doing. And you should feel the stretch down the side as well. And if you swap over and do that on the other side.
Sorry, kicked you. So we'll go hip flexor first, tighten that glute.
Squeezing your glute. And up and over.
So trying this latimus dorsi down here, coming through to that hip flexor.
Alright, now if you come back down to the lying position, you get into the clock arms. Your turn to have a sleep now. So supporting the arm, just pulling that down on the shoulder here, so it's not yanking on the joint too much, you're actually helping it by pulling the shoulder down. This is going to warm up the trap down the side of your neck for when we do that in a minute. And then just some range of motion out here. You notice we don't spend quite so long on the smaller muscles. By nature, the bigger muscles take more stretching, so once you feel you've got a stretch, you can move on. Again, you don't want to yank this joint, so we're supporting it from underneath as we lift it up. that.
It's beautiful. If you were my massage therapist, you'd now be massaging underneath it as well. And when Luke mentioned dynamic stretching earlier, dynamic stretching is stretching with movement. So the most obvious are things like lunges. And obviously before a game, before warm up, like when you've got to go out and do an event, an actual sport, you tend to use more dynamic than static stretching.
There's a couple of reasons for that, as I tell our 9-year-old rugby team. It's not just about warming the muscles up, it's about warming the nervous system up so it's functioning in the right way, which reduces injury and also gets your brain in gear for what you're about to do. I'm going to come up and do the final bit on your neck now. Kirsty hasn't put her hair up, so this is going to be fun.
Sorry.
So we're just putting a hand under the head and remove the towels.
Keeping me parallel.
Moving it slowly. Seeing we get our ear to the shoulder. You'll notice the weight of someone's head. It's quite extraordinary, and that's part of the reason that posture is so important. Having good flexibility, because you want your head to be balanced on top of your shoulders, not slumped over it like when you're at a desk. Because the head tends to lead most of your balance.
And you'll notice, like, don't rush these ones, because when your ear gets to the point which is the furthest it can reach, you naturally want to stay there a little bit longer to get that stretch.
And again, keeping the head in line, resting on the floor now. Just stretching the shoulder away from the ear. How's that?
That's good. And if in doubt, and it's the first time you've done this, I would say again, like your hand that is depressing the shoulder downwards wants to be stronger than anything to do with the head. So you know which is your winning hand. My earrings, sorry.
Again, these gym users not taking the jewelry off. Therapists, gym users. There we go. Put this back on there.
That one's a favourite in a facial.
Okay, so just a facial, if you lift your arms up over your head, all the way, relax, and then give them a stretch. A few deep breaths to finish. And lower those back down when you take the last few breaths before the fun part. You can see whether this has worked or not. So like we said at the beginning, it's always good to have a test to see how you've improved. It's always a nice sensation to be able to sit in action. So you just relax. But just getting the same way we did before. I mean, that is comfortably gone to 90 degrees. Snaps to you.
Yeah, and if you think about it, we probably only really about 5 minutes of hamstring, glute.
And I think it just also goes to show that there's a lot of gains to be made. Don't underestimate how much you can improve in a short period.
Especially when you have a partner doing it.
Last one. Again, this one didn't go to 90 last time, but...
And I think really, like, our sparring gym partners that we work with, the reason we brought it into the treatments was you used to do it on me after training if anything ever hurt, or I used to see it be done on you by all your physios, and the gains were just ridiculous, and I just couldn't not put it into a treatment adding in obviously the massage side as well. You add this and massage and it's a pretty potent combination.
There we go. That's your partner assisted stretch.
We hope you have an amazing rest of the weekend.